Everything that you do with flowers, it truly is art. Like something I've never seen before.
I do tend to think of things very cinematically. I'm always envisioning how the photographer is going to be capturing the couple, how the flowers will work in the setting that it's in, and also the emotion that it's going to conjure up. I think that's something that doesn't get talked about very often. You use these flowers to heighten the emotion of the day. We look at a flower and that gives us joy, or we look at a flower and it reminds us of our grandmother's garden. I want there always to be this sense of like wonder and excitement and awe.
Hi, my name is Andrea, and besides of being recently married, I own the leading company in bouquet preservation in the world. It is when connecting with my clients that I felt the need to serve them and help them navigate this new and exciting journey. On this podcast, we bring you everything you need to know to plan the wedding of your dreams. We'll be featuring conversations with top wedding vendors and valuable tips and advice from real couples. Whether you're engaged or simply love, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and let's get started on this journey to your perfect wedding day. Welcome to the club, to Bridal Club. Hi guys, welcome to Bridal Club. Today we have a very special guest, Dawn, the owner and creative director of Tularosa Flowers. Dawn is a true artist in floral design. She's not only known because of her breathtaking and unforgettable installations, but because she creates actual wedding experiences with flowers. I'm super excited to talk to her about her journey, how she got started, which you're not going to believe her background, and also where she is today. So help me welcome Dawn to this episode. Dawn, thank you so much for joining me today. I am super excited to talk to you. I've told you when we connected, I think it was about a year ago, and I want you to talk, of course, more about this. I think you know what I'm talking about, the pink wedding.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I found you because again it was all over Instagram. I connected with you and I knew I wanted to have you as a guest on the podcast. So thank you so much for being here today. For those who don't know who you are yet, please tell them more about you and your business.
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I think it's really wonderful the way that you are kind of introducing people to, wedding vendors in a way that it allows people to show more of who they are and tell more about what their business is. So thank you. So I'm Dawn Weisberg from Tularosa Flowers. We are an event floral design studio. We're located in Southern California, but we go everywhere for beautiful flowers.
I want to talk to you about how you started the business because I know it was not necessarily, you didn't have experience before you did going to the wedding industry. So tell me more about that.
Well, I mean, for sure, I've always been flower obsessed through my whole life. But I actually was a costume designer for film and television and theater for like 20 plus years. And I did that in New York City and Los Angeles. I got to travel all over the world with it. But it is a challenging industry. It is not always a kinder, gentler industry. And I think after 20 plus years, I was kind of not feeling fulfilled in my work anymore, either artistically or really on a soul level. I wanted to be in a different kind of environment. And I think because I've always been an artistic person, it's really important to me to feel artistically fulfilled in the work that I'm doing and to be passionate about it because that's kind of how I approach everything in life. I had been looking for a few years of how I could segue out of the entertainment industry, but it was a little challenging because I had literally wanted to be a costume designer since I was 8 years old. And I went to graduate school for it, and I did that for my entire adult life. So I think the idea of having my identity too was so wrapped up with being a costume designer that it was challenging to kind of feel my way out of it. But when I was planning my own wedding, I got so into the flowers and I was like, oh my gosh, people do this for a living. I hadn't grown up going to really like extravagant weddings where there were tons of flowers. It just wasn't really kind of in my knowledge. I actually grew up on a hippie commune in Miami. So it was really different than my upbringing.
Yeah.
And I loved it so much. I started to look into like, could this be a possible different career for me? I did reach out to a couple of florists and I went and like call it freelancing, for them where they need additional people on weddings. I did it once in the studio and once on a wedding. And what I realized was that the wedding was just like a film set. All of these different vendors working together collaboratively.
Yeah.
There's a very intense and strict timeline of like when things need to get done. And I felt totally at home. And I was like, oh, this is a rodeo. I know how to go. I know how to do. So
it's so funny that you mentioned that because my husband went to school for all kinds of different things and graduated eventually with a business degree. He did go to television and film, so he's kind of like familiar with what you're talking about. And he literally what he says, and we have a podcast about it. But what he said, it was Hollywood. Like it reminded him of Hollywood when they were like setting up. I mean, it was a clear tent, so they were even setting up like the building and everything, all kinds of different vendors at the same time, and he was the star in the movie film.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, so I love that you said that. That reference is awesome. Also, you mentioned a few times artistic, and that is how people, including myself, see you. Everything that you do with flowers, it truly is art. Like something I've never seen before. Your installations truly look like they should be in a museum. Tell me more about that specific wedding, the pink wedding that I'm talking about, and like how did you come up with the idea? How did you make that happen?
That was a really fun one. One of the brides was a wedding photographer who I've worked with before. She said, we're having this micro wedding. It was really small. I think they had 12 guests. She's actually from Texas. I think they're in Austin. And they were coming out and she's like, I really want you to do this wedding. And you can have total artistic freedom. All I want is for it to be Marie Antoinette meets Malibu Barbie and everything pink.
This is before Barbie movie, right?
It was totally before. Those are just her two loves. One of the most important things I think in weddings is to be true to yourself. The wedding is kind of a heightened version of like the best version of yourself. If you could do your house any way you would want to do it, that can inspire you for the decor, your outfit. Like you said, it's the day that you guys are the superstars of your own movie. It's great to go to Pinterest and Instagram and all these things, but you can also go to like art and architecture, pull inspiration from things that aren't necessarily weddings, and that will give your wedding a feel that is your own sense of style.
If you hire the right vendors, if you hire somebody who has an artistic background like you get some inspiration, you get two words, right? Or two concepts, and you just run with it and create something so incredibly unique. A lot of florists that may not have that experience may just be like, oh, okay, I'll put something together, no big deal. But again, grabbing the concept, combining them together and like making a baby out of it, that really does come with a lot of experience with a background in art.
Well, thank you. I think it is something that we bring to the table that's different than other florists, because I do tend to think of things very cinematically when I'm like designing the wedding. I'm always envisioning how the photographer is going to be capturing the couple, how the flowers will work in the setting that it's in, and also the emotion that it's going to conjure up. I think that's something that doesn't get talked about very often. There's only like two real moments in our lives when we're surrounded by flowers, and that's at weddings and at death. What flowers do is they heighten emotion, the intrinsic power of flowers. It's very primal. Like we look at a flower and that gives us joy, or we look at a flower and it reminds us of our grandmother's garden. You use these flowers to heighten the emotion of the day. And I think it's one of the things that kind of gets overlooked. And thinking about that when we're creating the design for a wedding, because I want there always to be this sense of like wonder and excitement and awe. That wedding was so special because really they gave us artistic freedom. I get inspiration from all different things, and I store that info in my brain to be pulled out at a later date. So a lot of the inspiration for their wedding came from a runway show. I'm totally blanking on the name of the designer right now, but he had done all of these really incredible things where roses were stuck into tulle that the models were wearing like down the runway. I wanted to bring that to life for a wedding.
Like I saw it somewhere, I can't even remember what page, and then I start following you and I start seeing it everywhere else. I'm like, good for her. Like you deserved that spotlight for sure. Let's talk a little bit about how can you level up, first of all, your business, of course, because you started from like smaller budgets to now bigger budgets, but also for a bride's perspective or a client's perspective, how can you level up the wedding feel?
Most important thing that adds to the cost for any wedding, and this is true for food or for anything, is like the number of guests that you have and the number of people in your bridal party. Because, you're paying a per table price for centerpieces and a per bouquet price for bridesmaids. So those two single factors are definitely the things that drive cost up. People don't quite understand when they're starting to get into wedding planning, is that it's not one table, it's 15 tables, or it can be 25 tables, or it can be 35 tables. Every table adds a base price that you can't really change. By far the best advice that I can give you, if you're wanting to have more money for decor and guest experience and stuff, is to be more modest in your guest count. That's definitely the best advice. Next to that, I think it's really good to decide which moments in the wedding are most important to you. When I'm talking to clients, the first thing that I am asking isn't like, what flower do you want? What color? Not even the colors. It's what's the emotions that you want to evoke for your wedding? Like, let's start from a place of mood and emotion that's abstract. From there, I can fill that in with what it's going to be with flowers or color. Those are the kind of parameters that I like to start with, because that's the thing that's most important, is that we're trying to achieve a feeling for the whole wedding. The visual will become more concrete through the design process, but I always start from the feeling place. For some people, ceremony is super important to them. That's like when you're pledging your vows to your loved one, and that they want that to be the most important moment. And for some people, the reception's the most important. They want it to be like an amazing party, or they want it to look like a chateau in France, or whatever it might be. But whatever parameters you're working with, you may have to make choices about like, okay, I can do this, but I can't do that. So if ceremony is super important, go for a wow factor moment with the arch or whatever's surrounding you guys, and then you can go lighter on flowers for the tables. Also having different, especially if you have a lot of tables, I often will have 3 different designs for tables, or at minimum 2 different designs for tables. Okay. And this helps to balance the budget. So one can be less full with flowers, maybe have more candles. One can be fuller. Maybe if you can't do the whole wedding, you can do the head table or the sweetheart table. What you don't want to do is try to sprinkle a small amount of flowers everywhere. It's better to make a few dramatic moments.
I love that. Okay, let's go back to how you scale your business. It blew my mind when I reached out to you and you were like $70,000 for the flowers. Like, how did you even get to the point that people would spend that money on flowers?
I'm gonna just say my whole wedding cost $10,000. The entire thing. The venue, the food, the flowers, I made my own dress. Everybody has a different budget, and that's fine. Like, and everybody's wedding deserves to be incredible. When I started, we were really starting in like the 3,000 to 5,000 range, I think, for the first year. You don't start with a $75,000 flower budget. And believe me, you don't want to. There's a whole lot of responsibility, yes, and there's a whole lot of logistics that goes into something like that. You want to have like the experience and the training behind you to make sure that when you are getting to that level of work, that you're able to execute it on a really incredible level as well, because the expectations when someone's spending that kind of money is that everything is going to be perfect. That's a lot of pressure. And every step of the process as we've been growing the business, I needed all of the steps that got me to the place that I am today.
Yeah, there's no replacement for experience.
Yeah, it really. And the other thing to understand too, and this is one of the other things I talk to with other florists, is that not everybody's happy doing those kinds of weddings, because not every florist, when you're doing a wedding that has that kind of budget, you're more managing, you're directing the entire process. You're not super hands-on with every individual centerpiece. I know a lot of florists who feel like, well, if I didn't make every centerpiece, I don't feel like I did the wedding. I think because I came from film where we work so collaboratively with lots of different departments events. There were always many people in our costume department. I understand that takes everybody's input to create like the end product. So for me, like doing large scale weddings feels so much like what I was used to doing before. But now instead of painting with, fabric and clothing, I'm doing it with flowers, with texture, with color. Back to the question, which was like, how did I get from A to B? Whenever there was an opportunity to create a design that made the wedding flowers look like they were more than what maybe they had paid for, I was able to do that, so that each time I was doing a wedding, if it was $5,000, it looked like a $7,000 wedding. And then I was booking $7,000 weddings
Wow.
because of that. And if it was a 7,000, it looked like a 10,000. And so they kept building onto each other. And I think that's just maybe it comes from my artistic background. I think also I changed careers from what was a very good, profitable career with great healthcare, and I had zero business background or training at all. And I changed because of passion and love for what I was doing. I do it for the flowers, but I really do it for the love. Like I love doing weddings because it's such an affirmation to me of humanity, of people. It's, a bright light sometimes in a dark world. Say I get teary-eyed. Pour my heart and soul into every wedding. And I think that's probably one of the things that shows in the work that we do and what people gravitate towards.
It really does. I mean, as I said, if you guys don't follow her on Instagram, go check her out. You'll see what she's mentioning and what I'm mentioning too from a viewer's perspective. I mean, you can see the passion shine through every single wedding that they do. Obviously, coming from a flower preservationist, I can see your artistry in every single piece that you produce, like how you place some flowers are a different level, like all of that. It's really, really fun to watch. So congratulations on everything you've built.
Oh, thank you. I so appreciate it.
Yeah.
I love the whole, like the wedding world. I really do. There's so many passionate people in it who are doing weddings, and just the clients that we get to serve. I just love everything about it.
I love it. So what are some misconceptions that you see in the wedding industry, obviously specifically with florists?
One thing that's really hard is that Pinterest and Instagram don't come with price tags. Generally speaking, you're pretty hard pressed on Pinterest or Instagram to find things that would be feasible with a lower budget in flowers, because that's not what people are putting on there. They're putting on things that are aspirational. Go to Trader Joe's, for instance, and buy flowers. Like you can buy peonies cheaper at Trader Joe's during peony season than I, as a florist, can buy them wholesale.
Wow.
Which is a crazy thing, right? But it's also a quality of the product that you're getting.
100%.
Because there are different qualities in flowers. Florists work with different qualities of flowers. Think about flowers more like the ingredients that a person would get in a restaurant to create a meal, rather than it's a bouquet, you can get it at Trader Joe's. Why does it cost so much?
We obviously get the flowers after the wedding and we can see it. Like that is why we have like our favorite florists that we recommend, which obviously you're one of them. But that is exactly why we have them, because whenever we get y'all's like flowers, like if we can absolutely see if they're high quality or not. I mean, in the way the shape are, regardless of the season, sometimes it's summer, and shipping flowers from California, it's insane. But if the flower holds, and like how it actually evolves, and like even how you smell the flower, it's so intense. It's very different.
Yeah. And the quality of the ingredients that are going into it is like the quality of what you get at the end. So sometimes we'll have people who are concerned with the budget who are like, well, can you use a cheaper flower? And I'm like, I can use a cheaper flower, but it's not going to look the same. And I think that part can be a little frustrating, especially I think it's frustrating for the clients too, because when you're comparing different florists, this florist is giving me one price for a bouquet or a centerpiece, and this florist is giving me a totally different price. And I got 3 different quotes and they're all completely different, which I can understand can be really frustrating for people. I think the restaurant comparison is really good. You can go to a Michelin star restaurant and you're getting not just the experience of the food that's of a different quality, but you're also getting service and ambiance that's a different quality. And I think that is true with florists as well. Part of what goes into our service is not just the flowers, but like the whole experience that you get during, what can be a year up to your wedding, availability to you, how we do the design process, like all of those different things play into the price that you're paying at the end, because there's a different involvement and time commitment for each wedding.
I agree. And there's a lot of communications and going back and forth. Now, can you describe your ideal client?
Well, it's always wonderful when someone comes to us because they love the work that we do, because already there is like, we're vibing on a certain level already, and that is how like our biggest and most amazing weddings have come to us, is that they found us on Pinterest or Instagram or wherever out in the world or on a blog. When your client gives you artistic freedom, it's just the most incredible freeing feeling. And I feel like definitely we do our best work when that happens. But on the other hand, I also really want to always give like our couples exactly what they want, because it's their wedding. I want it to be amazing for them, and I want it to be the vision that they had in their head. I think the biggest thing is just the clients that trust you implicitly. So whatever the design might be, when they trust that you have their best interests in mind, always the place that we come from, and I think that most wedding professionals come from, that's the best. No florist out there is trying to take your money and give you a bad quality thing. It's not an easy business. If you're in it for love and passion of what you're doing.
What we say here too is like, we want to give you a beautiful product because we want you to be proud of it, but we want to be proud of it too. And I know that is the same way for you as well.
Definitely.
How would you guide somebody to choose the style? I mean, as you said, Pinterest, there's no price tags, number one. Number two, there's so many different, like, for instance, somebody who doesn't know flowers specifically, like my sister, right? She's like, I'm all over the place. Obviously, you can go to Pinterest and find some inspiration. Would you suggest to do something to find a specific style, or how would you guide them through that?
I like to think of the whole wedding as an extension of who you guys are. If you don't know a lot about flowers, then you can leave it to your florist. Give them a color palette of what you want and the budget that you want to spend, and then they can help to guide you in the specific flower choices. If there are flowers that are super important to you, bring those up. Because for me, it's always great when somebody says, this flower was in my grandmother's garden, or this was my mother's favorite flower, or this flower has been around since my childhood and every major event they were there. It's such an emotional connection to flowers that if you have that, like bring that up, tell your florist which ones are important to you. You love peonies or orchids or lily of the valley or whatever it might be. We live now in a time where you can do anything at a wedding. People do anything and everything.
Yes.
So honor yourself, because you are the star of the day and your love story together. If your fiance always brought you a certain flower, let's incorporate that into the floral design.
I love that your type of questions are narrowing down a lot of options, and then also you're making them basically tell you who they are without them necessarily telling you this is what I am, or this is how I am, or this is what I like. I like that a lot. Do you work with planners directly or with customers directly, or kind of both?
Definitely both. There's some weddings where we never even talk to the client before the day of the wedding.
Okay.
And when that happens, then the planner, hopefully they have gotten to that point with their clients and they're able to answer all those questions on their behalf.
You truly get to know a couple when you start asking those questions. And if they're not asking those questions, the actual wedding itself may not be as personal, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So I think, one of the hardest things that you're going to do in wedding planning is actually choose your vendors, because there's so much choice out there. Hundreds, thousands, probably in everybody's area, unless you're in a super rural area. I think one of the things, especially like we talked about before, when pricing can be so different between the different vendors, it's like, how do you know that you're making the right choice for you beyond just budgetary ones? So first of all, the service that your vendor offers is going to be really different according to their price points too. So the most important thing you can do is find somebody that you connect with, you feel gets what your vision is for the day, whatever that vision might be, but that when you speak to them, they understand and can kind of grasp the vision that you're putting together. I think that's number one. That's more important than price point, because when you find that in your vendor, they're going to find creative ways to make your budget work. Somebody who's not really like connected is just going to be like, it's this or this. But the most important thing is finding that vendor who you connect with, who you trust, and then giving them the space to help you make it work within your budget is one thing that's really important. And you want to make sure, like, what are the questions that the vendor is asking you? Like, are they just asking you for a list of what flowers you want and how many tables and if you want an arch or how many bridesmaids? Like, all of those are really important. And we do need that information to be able to give you a budget. In addition to that, they need to be asking, how do you want the wedding to look? How do you want it to feel? If you had unlimited funds, where would you shop for your home? These are all the things that will help to make the wedding in all its aspects, like the flowers, the decor, the lighting, like all of those things need to come from a place of who you guys are, and not just the budget. There are ways to stretch the budget. Obviously, if you want a $30,000 flower budget look and you only have $3,000, I mean, people aren't magicians, but there's a way of asking you what the actual whole look and feel is that you want. And then they're able to work within your budget to achieve that is different than someone who's just asking for a list of the bare bones of what it is that you want. You know that is not going to be an individualized kind of service that you're going to get from that vendor. And I do work with some planners occasionally who like don't offer that information. And it's like, I will seek it out because it's important to me to make sure, like, is what we're doing with the flowers and the vase and the candle holders going to make sense with the color of the bridesmaids' dresses? And and I think I mentioned too, like, the bride's dress is so inspirational. Like, I want all those pieces. Not every vendor is going to offer that necessarily, but you're going to get a sense. Like, don't just look at the comparison on the page in terms of the price. Talk to the vendor and get a sense of who they are. A lot of times, even if you pay more for each individual thing, what you're going to get at the end is going to be so much more valuable and more true to you guys than what you're going to get if you just go with the lowest price.
I agree. And we're kind of like on the same boat. We're certainly not the cheapest on flower preservation. We do like to say that we're the best if you compare. We actually encourage people to compare. But whenever we do have design consultations with a lot of our competitors, don't even get on the phone with their customers, and I don't understand why. We have the time to understand their home decor, their wedding itself, their wedding dress, the actual flowers and piece that we create. We want to make sure that that piece matches their style and who they are.
Yeah. And, it is a two-way street. It's important for the couple to also communicate what their needs are and what their likes and dislikes are.
Your brides must be super proud and thankful that they got to work with somebody like you. I mean, back in the day, it was basically like everybody's bouquet was the same, like a round bouquet, and they would just give it to them like the day off and that's it. The fact that you're able to incorporate all these amazing ideas and connecting every single piece of their wedding through the flowers and through your art is truly mesmerizing.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I love what I do. I love what I get to do.
Do you have any closing thoughts or any excited projects coming up?
Next year, we definitely are going to be doing more destination weddings. We did our first in Hawaii this year, which was fun and different. I do want to start to incorporate workshops and mentoring more into the business because I just keep getting asked for it from other florists, and I know that it's time to add that in.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Before we go, please tell our audience where they can connect with you and hire you for their wedding. I really hope that they're listening to this before they choose a florist because they need to consider you for sure.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you can find us on Instagram at Tularosa Flowers. We're also on Pinterest. On Pinterest, I believe we're Tularosa Flowers and Farm. We're on TikTok. I'm just getting our TikTok started. And you can find us always at our website at tularosaflowers.com. And there's a form to fill out there, and then we'll get in touch.
Awesome. Well, Dawn, thank you so much for your time today. It was so nice to finally meet you.
So nice to finally meet you too, and thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Learn about all things wedding straight from the experts. Be sure to like and subscribe to Bridal Club.